Question 23. Farmers spread calcium hydroxide on their fields to neutralize soils that are too acidic for crops to grow well. Which ion neutralizes the acid in the soil? A lot of words, a lot of stuff, a lot of things going on, but the answer is so easy. There's only one ion that can neutralize H plus, and that is the OH minus, the alkaline ion. The only thing in soil that would ever cause the H plus concentration to decrease and for the pH to work its way back up is the actual hydroxide ion in its presence. So 23 is B. 24. Butanoic acid only partially dissociates, meaning it's got to be a weak acid. So we can eliminate things like C and B. Now, I wish I could tell you could eliminate A, but you technically can't because strong acids generally fit in a range of 0 to 2. Weak acids generally fit in a range of about 3, 3.5 to about 6.5. So now A and B technically could be the answer. But the next part is what gives it away. Thymolphthalein is one of those indicators, one of those two indicators along with litmus that you are absolutely supposed to know the color change in. For example, in alkalis, thymolphthalein is always blue, but in acids, it's always colorless. So therefore, B is your answer because this blue in thymolphthalein implies alkali, not acid. Okay? All right, 25. I picked out specifically for the reason of making sure you read the choices correctly. I want you to look at your options. If you look very carefully, three of your options involve the choice two. Three of your options involve statement two. So if statement two is correct, then any one of those three possible answers could be right. But that also means that if statement two is incorrect, that means every choice with statement two is wrong and you already know your answer. So for this question, if you understand your choices and if you are able to comprehend what's happening with those choices, you can eliminate three wrong answers and you will know what the answer is simply by checking statement number two. Statement number two says that potassium iodide is an oxidizing agent. And just that statement alone is false. एक बात याद रखें, potassium iodide is a test for oxidizing agents. Not an oxidizing agent itself, it is a test for oxidizing agents. इसका मतलब बेटा ये है कि itself it is a reducing agent. And if it's a reducing agent, that means statement two is false. And therefore, without even having to confirm statements one and two, the answer is B. I wouldn't even spend one additional second here. I'd move on. Okay? 26. A solution of W has the following properties. It says when added to excess solid ammonium chloride, a gas is given off. All right, remember that. That when you add it to ammonium chloride and you react it, it gives off a gas which turns litmus blue. Just so we're clear, this is a property of an alkali. All right? Then it says that when added to an excess of solution to a solution of pH 3, meaning when you add it in excess amounts to a strongly acidic solution, or to an acidic solution, sorry, that you end up with a pH of 13. 13 does not imply weak alkali or weak base. It implies a strong base. Weak bases have pH values of 8 to about 10 or 11. If you get above 11, then you're looking completely at a strong base. The answer is B. All right, question number 27. Copper 2 sulfate is prepared by adding excess copper 2 carbonate to sulfuric acid. Okay? Why is an excess of copper 2 carbonate added? I love this question because students know now they've mugged up the rules of preparation so well that they keep forgetting basic nuances. Why would I ever add an excess of a base to, again, an acidic solution? Pehli baat, if it's a soluble base, then I would never add excess, then that would not neutralize the solution. It would make it more alkaline. But that's, the fact that I'm adding excess, first step, it's got to be insoluble. Can't be anything but. Second thing, what is that insoluble base trying to neutralize or get rid of? The only reason you add the excess insoluble base to your mixture is so you can get rid of all of the acid. That's the simplest understanding. Remember, the salt that we want should have a pH of 7. And the only way it can have a pH of 7 is if you get rid of all of the acidic solution. No confusion, by the way. A lot of students have asked, अगर base excess में है, तो pH 7 कैसे होगा? Because copper carbonate is insoluble. Insoluble bases do not affect the pH of solutions. 28. Elements in group 1 and group 2 show the same trends in their reaction with water and their density. Which row shows how the properties of barium compare with calcium? Now, the thing that you need to remember here is where each of these are in relation to one another. And then here's the reason why they've said this. Because they know that most students know the trend for group 1. So they want you to apply the same trends that you apply for group 1 here by telling you that they follow the same trends. So if we go down the group, reactivity increases. So the reaction with water goes up. If we go down the group, the atomic mass increases, so density goes up. So you would see A as your answer as you go down group 2 as well as down group 1. 29. Which substance is an unreactive gas found in the atmosphere? I wish I could tell you that this is a question trying to trick you about several noble gases. It's not. The fact that they said unreactive, you should have immediately thought. Now, noble gases are all members of group 8. So the only choice that even remotely shows group 8 is D. What's the point of adding some of these other questions? Like I said, we spent a little bit longer on the stoichiometry questions. We spent a little bit longer on some of the electrolysis questions or some of the other questions earlier on. By adding these questions, what are we doing? We're averaging out our time. Like I said, if you get stuck more than 2 minutes on a given MCQ, skip it. There will be other MCQs that you will spend less time on, and you will probably get a chance to come back to the one that you skipped. Just be careful on your answer sheet, though. If you skip, on the number side, put a small cross with your pencil so you know not to answer that and move on to the next choice. Number 30. Reversible reaction is shown. Which changes will increase the mass of the precipitate? Again, working on the idea of precipitation, knowing that you understand precipitation is on the product side, not on the reactant side. Secondly, if we want to increase the mass of the precipitate, we want the equilibrium to shift to the right-hand side. And the way that it's going to shift to the right-hand side is by doing things to the left. So adding more water, correct. By putting more water in, the equilibrium will shift to the right, so one will work. Two, adding sodium hydroxide, correct. Why? When you add sodium hydroxide, it uses up HCl. It decreases product concentration. And then the equilibrium has no choice but to produce more product, and thus it will shift to the right-hand side. So adding sodium hydroxide will work. Adding HCl, however, will not work. Because if I pump in more HCl, it will send the equilibrium back to the left-hand side to get rid of the excess acid. That's not what we want. So again, the answer is A. 31. Which compound has the lowest percentage by mass of nitrogen? All right. How do we eliminate choices? Let's start there. All right. I would like for you to look at A, B, and D. You will note that every one of them has exactly the same number of nitrogen atoms present within the formula. Why is that important? That means that the AR mass, 2 times 14 at the top of your percent mass calculation will be the same for all of them. So जिसका MR ज़्यादा है will always have a lower percent by mass nitrogen. And since they've asked you to find the lowest, you can ignore the one with the lowest MRs. So you can ignore A and D because A and D would give you higher percent mass of nitrogen than you would see in B accordingly. So now you can pick between B and C. Again, you can eliminate only when the number of nitrogens are the same. Problem with C is that the number of nitrogens are not the same. So here's what we have to do for the other two. This is ammonium sulfate. This is ammonium phosphate, 21.2% for the ammonium sulfate, 28.1% for the ammonium phosphate. So because the answer has to be B. Said the lowest, so the lowest percentage is in B. By the way, A and B, they give you considerably higher, 35 for B and well over 40% for A. All right, 32, reactivity series question using observational data. It says that when you put metal W into an acid, you see fizzing. Put metal X into acid, you see fizzing. You put metal Y into acid, you see violent fizzing. Z, you see no reaction. What this means is that Y is probably the most reactive, and Z is probably the least reactive. Now, we don't really have enough information to place X and Y. Then it says that if you place a metal oxide of any of these metals and heat with carbon, which ones can be produced, meaning which ones can be reduced by the carbon. Now, it says that W cannot be reduced, but it says that X can. Now, what does that mean? That means if we put carbon here and it says that W can't be reduced by carbon, that's because it's up here. And if it says that X's metal can be produced by being heated by with carbon in the presence of its oxide, that means X would be here in relation to carbon. So इसका मतलब ये है कि then after Y, W is the most reactive, and then is X and Z would come all the way at the end. So this is the reactivity series from the data that we've got. Y being the most reactive, then W, then X, then Z. A is your answer. All right. 33. Plastic combusts to form sulfur dioxide and HCl. How could both waste gases be removed from the air? Since both of these gases happen to be acidic, the only way to remove them is with a base. And very conveniently, that means your answer is B. All right, 34. The properties of the element titanium Ti can be predicted from its position in the periodic table, which identifies the properties of titanium. All right. When they say that its position, that its properties can be predicted on its position, it's generally applying to a noble gas by me. I'm sorry, a transition metal. I apologize. So transition titanium is a transition element. So can it be used as a catalyst? Yeah. Can it conduct electricity when solid? All metals can. Does that necessarily have to do with its position? All right, we're going to go ahead and mark it tick because that's not what the question worded it out at. As low density, that's absolutely incorrect. Form colored compounds, that is correct. So we should be picking B. Just so we're clear, why did I pause on B for a moment there? Technically, that's a property of all metals. Even though it mentioned that the property of titanium to be predicted on its position, it then turned around and said, all right, what are the properties of all metals? And so we had to pick out from A. We had to pick out and mark uh, what are the properties of titanium as an element. It is a metal, so it will conduct. So again, B would also have a tick here.